Hey, what's up guys? So today I want to kind of talk about something a little bit different than color grading, even though it is connected to it, and that's more of the business side of things. I've been doing, color correction and grading videos for DaVinci Resolve and even like a few reviews, like for Dehancer, for example. If you haven't seen that, you can check that out. But I want to start adding a few more business side for freelancing, having a successful production company or post studio or anything that's more business oriented. After having been a colorist, a professional colorist in New York City for about 12 years, I've definitely learned a lot, and I think I do have a lot of bits of advice now, and I have just 2 points. One of them will be related to color grading, and then the other one will be a little bit more business oriented. So let's jump right in.
This intro intentionally left blank.
Okay, so regarding color grading, I would say a great bit of advice that really changed the way I grade and the way I view color correction is to always push the grade further than you think. So I guess you could say that this little bit of advice is directed more towards the beginner colorist or filmmaker who tend to get a little bit obsessed with the technical side and making sure everything is super color accurate, and they use chip charts to make sure everything is white balanced. And when you push that sort of mentality too far, that's when your project, a lot of times, especially if you're a beginner, and especially if you aren't working with professional DPs, and let's say you're lighting your own project or you're filming your own project and you're doing everything, that's when projects tend to look a little bit too like soap operas, like corporate, just very flat and sterile and don't have much character to them. So my bit of advice to you would be to always push your grade further than you think. And the second part to that is to walk away from your grade, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and come back and watch it. So what tends to happen, and I see this all of the time in a ton of projects, and it's specific to people who are starting out and beginners in the film industry, is they shoot their project, they'll shoot it in log, they'll have a look in mind, and then they start editing and they apply a LUT, and then that LUT gets ingrained in the project, and then anything outside of that LUT looks wrong to them. They don't like it. Any slight adjustment, even if shots don't match, they get kind of obsessed with that LUT, and anything differing from that look seems completely wrong to them. They don't like it. It doesn't look good. Any slight adjustment, and they feel like you're pushing the grade too far. But if you're wanting a certain look, like let's say that kind of warm, dreamy 1970s kind of California look, and you push it to a certain place where you think maybe it's too far, walk away from it, come back, and I guarantee you that 9 out of 10 times, that look is gonna look great. It's gonna look amazing. It's not gonna look like you pushed it too far. And the reason behind that, which is connected to this tip of push a grade further than you think, it's because a general audience, when they see a project and when they see a look, remember that that look is normal to them. You may remember it as this very flat log, normal looking, footage, but if they see something and it's very orange, very yellow, very low contrast, and it's pushed really far where even the skies are kind of yellow and orange, that's normal to them. And it's those kind of projects that tend to stand out. The stuff that doesn't stand out are the stuff that does look like soap operas, that everything is perfectly white balanced, skin tones are super, super accurate, which another thing that a lot of beginners tend to be obsessed about. The skin tones are super accurate, and if you look at a lot of feature films and a lot of, really great looks that we all love and try to mimic, if you break those down, a lot of times those projects are breaking every rule. The shadows, the blacks are not pure blacks. The skin tones are not natural or accurate or to how that actor looks or how he even looked on set. A lot of times skin tones are very orangey. If you really try to nail it down to what's color accurate, they're very orange, they're very green, they're very blue, they're very contrasty. The skies, like I said, are very yellow or orange or even reddish, and nothing there looks like it would in real life. And those are the looks that you're wanting to get to really help push the color story. Color story is the color schemes, the contrast schemes, and the looks on a scene-by-scene basis that help push the story forward. There's a reason that horror movies look a certain way, very gritty, contrasty, dark, desaturated, a lot of greens in there, and it's because that has a very creepy, eerie look. That's a color story. So yeah, what I'm getting at is to not be obsessed with perfection. A great, perfect, classic example is everyone wants a film look. Everyone wants a cinematic look. And when we look at film, whether it's Kodak or Fuji, whether it's 35mm photographic film or cinema film, it is imperfect. The things that we love about those film stocks are that the skin tones are very kind of pink or very yellow, that the contrast is very high or the contrast is very low, that it sort of pushes greens out a little too much or kind of recedes the blues. So many traits, so many characteristics, things like grain, also in old lenses where they're just like not perfect, they're soft, they maybe vignette a little bit in the corners. All these things are imperfections that modern cameras have fixed, which is why modern cameras are super crisp, super sharp from edge to edge, maybe too crisp, too sharp, and film stocks are again imperfect, have a lot of character because of those imperfections, and that's what we're trying to mimic. Usually in our projects, we're not trying to make something look super sharp, super crisp, whites to be a perfect pure white and everything tack sharp, because that's when you're dealing in soap opera mode, when everything, does not look very good, does not have a lot of personality. It's just very scientific, very sterile, and very perfect, but not in a good way. So again, that's my bit of advice. Push your looks and your grades further than you need to, and you'll see that you have something good that before you thought was maybe going too far. Okay, so this next one is more business oriented, whether you're a freelancer, whether you have your own small, one-man band production company or whatever that might be. And again, this is a business tip that I think really helped, my entire career as a colorist, and that is knowing your worth. And what I've noticed is that a lot of beginners come from a place where they're used to working at a store, making 10 bucks an hour, making 15 bucks an hour, making a minimum wage, making, a low hourly rate. And the thought of them charging someone $100 or $150 or even $200 or more is just crazy to them. And it's like they almost get scared or afraid or nervous to ask someone for that much money. But you have to remember that if you have a skill, just like a doctor, just like anyone else who has a specialized skill, that skill has a value in the city you live in the market you're in, whether you're in Boise, Idaho, or Los Angeles, or New York, or wherever. That skill has a value in that market, and you should not charge below that value. And what's connected to knowing your worth is people will value you just as much as you value yourself. So if you are of the mindset that you think, hey, I'm starting out, I don't have much experience, so I'm going to do things for free, or I'm going to do things very cheap, or I want to get some business, so I'm going to charge way below market value, what will happen is that you will plateau and you will become the cheap person, the person who does it for free, the person who does it at a discount. And on top of that, you're also hurting your market, you're hurting your city, especially if you're in a smaller city that's not, for example, New York or LA or London or one of those bigger cities. Then before you know it, when a lot of people start doing that, you'll start becoming someone who you go to work with a client. If you have a real market rate, they will tell you, oh, but so-and-so did it for 50 bucks with unlimited adjustments, unlimited corrections. And, he shot it, produced it, directed it, wrote it, did edit, color, sound. He did everything for 300 bucks. And that's when you slowly start decreasing the value of your work for yourself and for your entire market. I've also seen this a ton of times where people charge too little, do things for free, give huge discounts, don't have a contract, they don't know their worth, and then before you know it, bad clients want to pay cheap prices, and they tend to be the hardest to work with because they want something good, fast, and cheap. And for those of you that don't know, there's that saying that when you're working with someone, good, fast, or cheap, pick two. If you want it to be good and you want it to be fast, then it's not going to be cheap. And if you want it to be cheap and fast, then it's not going to be good. It's that simple. So what I get from those filmmakers is they get a client who wants it good, fast, and cheap. They deliver it good, fast, and cheap. And then they pull in other bad clients that are nightmare clients to work with because they want, you know, the whole world very fast and very cheap. And then before you know it, in a few months or in a year, they're burned out because they're working with nothing but nightmare clients who want things, you know, very quickly, very well done, very cheap. They're very demanding. And it's this endless cycle of bad clients. What you want, and there are people out there, are clients where you send them an estimate, they respect that estimate. Yes, they might haggle a little bit, but we're talking, you know, a small amount. You work with them. If they ask for additional changes, they're willing to pay for those additional changes. And then that's where you get in a situation where you can't believe you're getting paid to do what you love. And it's, you know, from that lesson of knowing your worth, knowing your value, and learning to say no. If someone isn't paying you what you're worth or they're asking for too much, it's perfectly okay to walk away and say no. And always remember that the clients that you work with attract other similar clients. So what you want to do is get in a situation where you attract great clients that are easy to work with, they respect your time, they know your worth, they pay you what you're worth, and then they will attract other clients like that. And that's where you want to be, not in the other place where you're working for rock bottom wages, you're working with nightmare clients, they're always demanding more. And also, this is the last thing I'll say about this. If a client ever says, give me a discount on this job and I'll bring you more work, or I'll pay you your full rate on the next job, they never do that. Once you've done a job for cheap or for a certain price, that client will never want to pay full price. And if they do, they will never think that you are worth that price because you've already done it for cheap. And even if their next job does have that budget, they're not going to want to pay you. It's not going to feel right for them to pay you more money when you've shown that you can do it for less. If they have a budget that's higher, they're going to go to someone else, and then they're always going to come back to you when they have little money and when they need someone to do it on the cheap, really quick, at a discount. So again, know your worth and always push your grade further than you think. Embrace the imperfections. So those are my 2 quick tips for today. Let me know if you like the sort of business oriented, you know, having your own production company tips, surviving out in the real world, doing what you love. I've done other classes on this, like on Skillshare. You can check out this one class that I did, which is actually one of my more popular classes. But if you want to see more classes like this, more on the business side of things, on how to get ahead, how to be successful in a creative business, let me know in the comments, and I'll see y'all later.